Greetings, true believers and newcomers alike. You're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app. Excelsior!
An experiment has gone wrong. Now, as one man searches for a cure, he discovers a power that even he can't control.
System overload.
The Incredible Hulk.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 254 of the DCAU Review. That's right, we are still the DCAU Review, but as has now become tradition, we've flipped the script, so to speak, here, and we're having a little fun for our April Fool's episode. Liam, welcome to this week's edition of the DCAU Review.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with my hands. This is always a little bit strange, but yes, it's no, we're gonna have a lot of fun today. As Cal said, this is gonna be a tradition for this April Fool's week going forward. I think we started it last year with a review of an episode of the Spider-Man animated series, and so this year, one week only, one episode only, we will bring you a decidedly non-DC animation-based review. And in this case, it's for the Incredible Hulk animated series and the episode entitled Helping Hand, Iron Fist.
That is right. And you may be sitting at home scratching your head going, listen, there's the X-Men animated series you could have done. There is Fantastic Four. There's the Iron Man cartoons. Why, of all of the Marvel animated cartoons, heck, you could have done another Spider-Man episode. Why, of all of the Marvel animated cartoons, did you pick the Incredible Hulk episode? And the answer is quite simple. It's because we wanted to do this episode.
Because it's our show. That's why.
That is correct. Yes, we do a lot of fan service on this show, you know, and we put the power in the hands of the listeners a lot. We did so last year, actually. There was a brief moment where I thought we were going to have to review the Channing Tatum dog movie
one day.
Well, you know, but we gave the power to the listeners. They selected Spider-Man. This year, we decided to be a little selfish. This episode, Liam, of this show, it's actually the fourth episode in the series run, but originally aired on September the 29th. 1996 here in the States on the UPN network. So for those of you who don't know, if you're here in the States and you're like, what in the heck is the UPN network? Perhaps you're a little bit younger than us, or perhaps you don't remember. Maybe your region didn't have the UPN network. I'm not quite sure if that was I assume it was a national network. It was pretty national. But
it's the network that would eventually merge with the WB to form what is now in America the CW network.
Correct, which is the joint venture between CBS and Warner Brothers, which is Paramount and Warner Brothers, which we're not even going to get into the conglomeration of different mergers here. But essentially, there's not a ton of information out here as to why the Incredible Hulk animated series, at least that we were able to find, was picked up by the UPN network as opposed to the Fox network, where the previous four animated shows, Marvel shows, as we mentioned, X-Men, Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the Fantastic Four were all shown on Fox Kids. We're not quite sure. There's not a lot of details out there. Perhaps if you're a listener and you have some insight, or maybe you know a little bit more than we do, feel free to tweet us this week at DCAU Review on Twitter. But UPN picked up the Incredible Hulk series, and it ran for 2 seasons. This, as we mentioned, is the 4th episode in the series. The first season was actually pretty well liked by a lot of people. It's pretty dark compared to the other Marvel shows that were on television prior to this, and has a running thread throughout of the Hulk desperate to find his cure, as is so often the case, and was prior to this in the live action series. But they leaned a lot, Liam, in this show in many different episodes on guest stars. perhaps as a way to draw those viewers over to the network to get people excited about an Incredible Hulk show. But this episode is no different and features Iron Man, as we mentioned, in case you couldn't figure it out. Doesn't actually feature Iron Fist, who is even though himself a Marvel superhero. No, it features Iron Man and War Machine. So we get some crossover here, and it happens to be voiced by the same people that played those characters in the Iron Man animated series. So we do have some continuity here, and some I would say if this was if you had to break this down, if this fit into the loosely Marvel animated universe canon, it seems to fit. So, we'll get into this week's 4 categories, just like we do with our DC shows. We're going to break this down into our 4 categories this week, which, of course, are plot, visuals, and animation, music, and then voice acting. And but before we do, we, of course, are going to get to the official IMDb synopsis for this week's episode, which, of course, is brought to you by The Pod Tower. Head over to youtube.com/thepodtower to check out our prior 253 plus episodes, including last year's April Fool's Day special. If you want to check out our animated review of the very first Spider-Man the Animated Series episode, Night of the Lizard, that is available right there at youtube.com/thepodtower. Not only that, but you get some great content from our friends over at Watchtower Database, and Tim Talk's entire library is available for streaming as well. Head over to youtube.com/thepodtower.
All right, so this is the very, very long synopsis for Helping Hand Iron Fist, which was written by Stuart St. John, directed by Ernesto Lopez, with music by, apologies in advance for how badly I'm going to butcher these names, but Shuki Levy or Levi and Kusa Makai or Machi, apologies, just terrible apologies, and an animation by Sai Ram Productions. And that synopsis reads as such. Bruce Banner goes to California and attempts to contact Tony Stark. He is suffering from amnesia and attacks Rick and Iron Man when they show up to help. Hulk regains his senses and transforms to Bruce Banner. After a conversation with Jim Rhodes, Gabriel Jones and General Ross realize where Banner is hiding and send Hulkbusters to get him. Stark tries to help Banner purge the Hulk, but the Hulkbusters interfere despite the efforts of War Machine. Due to the interference, Banner transforms, and Stark has to put on his special anti-Hulk armor. With Rick's help, the Hulk escapes. Excelsior!
Thank you, Stan the Man. Appreciate that.
All right, Cal, you're going to have to lead the rest of this episode because that pretty much killed my throat.
I'm surprised you did not hack up a lung halfway through that.
One take, baby!
That's right. We gotta love it. But yeah, we can jump into our plot recap here as we start the episode off. As we mentioned at the top, it's actually we get Sad Boy Hulk like immediately. He's just sitting there in the rain on like a rock, and he's just real sad.
This Hulk definitely listens to Juice WRLD, like
for sure. He's cranking it up. He's real sad. Honestly, you could probably take this clip, somebody should, and just kind of put some of that sad, slow reverb to it and just loop it over and over again of just the Hulk sitting there in the rain. Like I'd be very surprised if there isn't a YouTube video with like slowed reverb Hulk sitting in the rain listening to whatever slow reverb song there is. But yes, so the Hulk is sitting there in the rain. He's very, very sad, and as this Hulk is sitting there, he happens to hear the screams of a female voice, and off in the distance he considers perhaps it might be his love, Betty Ross, who of course is his lost love, who is back at home trying to work on a cure for him, as we'll find out a little bit later. And of course, the daughter of General Thunderbolt Ross, who we'll learn is in hot pursuit of trying to find the Hulk so they can capture him, just as it is in the live action Marvel universe. Of course, very similar to that. At least it was. I guess Thunderbolt Ross is no longer after the Hulk anymore. I don't know. Can't keep up with it. Anyway, back to the show. So there's a group of ne'er-do-wells that are chasing down this poor Latino family in the rain, and that is who is screaming for help. The Hulk jumps in right at the last moment, just as it appears that this poor family is about to be shaken down, robbed, and who knows what else happened to them. The Hulk jumps in and starts taking care of business, ending up kind of not only shaking the car and smashing the car, but takes it and throws it off of the overpass down, sends it skidding down below, where it actually slides into a group of police officers who were, I guess, on their break. I don't know. But just in time, he steps in and is able to save this poor family. And the gentleman is so thankful to the Hulk. He gives him his rain jacket and wishes him well, and he goes about it on his way. This causes the Hulk, I assume, to calm down a little bit, which causes him to transform back into Dr. Bruce Banner, who realizes that he is in fact arrived in Los Angeles, and that's where the rest of our episode will take place. So he's there in LA, and he's made it. He's there in an attempt to find Tony Stark, aka, of course, Iron Man, in an attempt to help him with finding his cure. And he heads over to a payphone. Kids, a payphone used to be sort of like a cell phone, except it was public. It was available for public use. You had to put quarters in to pay for your phone call. And it was probably one of the most unsanitary places to be in the United States at the time. But yeah, they still exist someplace, I think. But anyway, so he makes his phone call. And in the midst of the phone call, unfortunately, the damage that happened to the overpass as the Hulk was on his rampage at that point begins to give way, and he's only able to leave a brief message for Tony, letting him know that he was there. And as the overpass crumbles, he falls down and is unfortunately covered by some of the rubble. And that's where we get our shift to a character, Rick Jones. Is this character? I don't know. Does this character still exist in Marvel Comics?
I think he's around. I'm not up to date on my Hulk lore. I don't think he himself has been a Hulk yet. But yeah, I think he's around.
Okay, all right. So Rick Jones, who in the 90s and certainly in the show was sort of I guess he was a sidekick stand-in. Like he's Bruce Banner's friend that was somewhat responsible for ended up being, as the story goes, responsible for turning the Hulk Bruce into the Hulk. He was on like the testing site and was the person that Bruce Banner went out to save in order to prevent him being affected by this Rick Jones from being affected by the gamma radiation. So he sort of gave up his own life to protect Rick Jones. So Rick sees that he owes him a bit of gratitude and a debt, sort of so to speak. So he's Bruce's friend and protector and is sort of trying to watch over him. And we see that he has shown up at Stark Enterprises, where he is looking to find out just if Bruce has made it to Stark Enterprises in order to meet up with his pal. And we get a pretty humorous entry piece here as we get our bad boy Rick Jones doing the security guards no favors and giving no craps, doing everything he can to avoid Stark's high-tech security system. But at the last second, he is stopped before he can go any further by not Iron Man, but another man in a metal suit that you might recognize.
I'm here to see Tony Stark. Or if he's not around, maybe that rusty bodyguard of his, Iron Maiden.
His name's Iron Man. Listen, kid, try calling the office. Is it a decent hour? Like daytime?
But I make a heck of a better impression in person.
Hey!
Yo! In the hot zone.
Let me guess. You just kind of wandered off the bike path, right, hotshot?
I gotta see Stark. He might know where to find someone. Bruce Banner.
Dr. Banner? Come with me.
That's right. The War Machine, who, of course, in this era of both this cartoon and the comics, this probably seems like a very foreign concept now, but Tony Stark used to have a secret identity. And Iron Man and War Machine were Tony Stark's bodyguards. Mm-hmm. So War Machine is sort of the head of security at Stark Enterprises. So he intercepts Rick, who has jumped the security barricade on his motorcycle in the most radical 90s way that someone could do that. and he takes him in, and we then cut to our first appearance of the titular Tony Stark, as he is talking with his computer program, who is not Jarvis. This is another thing I forget, because you don't watch these things for 30 years or for 15 years, and you forget these sort of things. But the Jarvis character that you would probably know from the modern movies was sort of a mishmash of an actual person. He had because comics used to be a lot more blatant about ripping each other off. Tony Stark also used to have a British butler named Jarvis, and then at some point they got rid of him, and he had a computer AI assistant named Homer, and eventually in the modern MCU version of things, they've sort of molded those into one character. But yes, we have Homer here as he and as Tony is discussing there. We see him plugging in his metal heart thing to charge it up. The
precursor to the arc reactor.
Right. Yes. And they're sort of discussing things, and then War Machine and barges into his office, bringing Rick with him, who tells Tony that this kid knows Dr. Banner, and something seems to be wrong.
Oh, we're off to see the wizard.
Rhodey. War Machine. A little late for the grand tour, isn't it?
Evel Knievel here took a mad dash through your perimeter stun lasers, hoping to find Bruce Banner.
Banner? Thanks, War Machine. Is Dr. Banner a friend of yours?
Try best friend. He's got himself missing, and I have a bugging hunch he's coming here.
Bruce Banner for Tony Stark.
That message came in 20 minutes ago.
From where? How can we...
I'm afraid my holographic computer is developing a rather wicked sense of humor. Finished with the analysis, Homer?
Origin of Dr. Banner's transmission. Emergency call box. Los Angeles. At 5th and Thomas.
Rough turf.
No problem, because I'm a rough rider.
Shall I prepare Iron Man, sir?
Yeah. Be sure to oil his knees, because we gotta run.
So they then Tony has a moment of fortuitous happenstance as he presses a button on his computer and finds out that he has a missed call from Dr. Banner from about 20 minutes ago. And did they say the street name? Like,
I think he does.
Homer traces it or something.
Yeah, he traces it to like some highway and corner of something.
That's right. So Rick, of course, races off to find Bruce and try to help him. And Homer asks Tony if it's time to suit up as Iron Man. And so we cut to Rick arriving at this freeway underpass where the Hulk has been, or where Bruce Banner has been buried. And we see it's not just the Hulk who has some memory issues, but Bruce Banner himself as well, who doesn't recognize Rick. And as Rick tries to help him out of the rubble, that of course just agitates Bruce, and he returns to the Hulk form and is about to smash, so to speak. not that way. He's about to destroy Rick and hurls him towards one of the support beams of the underpass. But enter, for the first time in the episode, we have Iron Man here to save the day.
Wake up!
Who are you? Get away from me!
Man, what are you doing? This overpass is about to pancake. Let's move!
I don't know you. Leave
me. Wait, what are you doing? Hey, Hulk, it's me, Rick.
Hulk.
damage. Try throwing it at Iron Man.
Leave him alone!
I gotta stop extending those kind of invites.
Battleman! Hulk enemy!
Yeah, well, you gotta admit, you're a little hard to warm up to yourself.
You get a nice little punch up between the two. Iron Man really really gets the worst half of this. Like this is not in an era where like every superhero has to be evenly matched to like make everybody's fans happy.
Mm-hmm.
This is an era where like Hulk just wipes the floor with pretty much every other character.
Yeah, it seems like logically that makes sense. Like he's supposed to be the most his name is the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like it's in the name. He should, even though he's fighting a man in a robotic suit of armor, he should still be able to overpower him. He's the Incredible Hulk. Yeah, it's interesting. Also, I know that I guess we maybe talk about this in visuals also, but worth noting now is that this has a lot more action in it than our previously reviewed Marvel animated series. There's a lot more fists thrown here. I mean, there's still not a ton of violence, but we do have this one scene that makes up a lot more, and I think that they were able to get away with it maybe because Tony's wearing the Iron Man suit.
For sure. Yes, as it's a pretty one-sided fight as the Hulk just continues to wear down Iron Man, and as things look like he's got him dead to rights, Rick sort of re-enters the picture, and as Hulk is perhaps about to attack Rick again, Rick's finally able to kind of get through to him and make him realize that they're his friends and that they're there to help, which once again sort of calms the Hulk down and returns him to his Bruce Banner state, and he kind of passes out as Iron Man and Rick prepare to take Bruce back to Stark Enterprises. We get this. This is one of the fun things about coming to a random episode of this show, because it has an overarching plot that obviously goes through every episode, even though most of the episodes I think are pretty easy to watch. And so one thing is we get just one random scene of Betty Ross, Bruce's lost love, and a guy with green hair named Doc Samson trying to do some sort of scientific testing. They're trying to find a way to cure Bruce as well, and the test does not go well. So we just get that one cutaway. They're never, and that's all we get for this episode. So you'll have to follow up on your own and find out if Doc Samson and Betty ever cured Bruce. I guess I'm guessing not.
Yeah, otherwise that would be a kind of antithetical to the entire series. It would then just be called The Incredible Bruce Banner.
Not as exciting. Doesn't sell as many toys, I think.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah, so from there we cut to a first appearance of General Ross, as mentioned, who's keeping looks on a sort of a path of destruction on a map that the Hulk has found, and he contacts I guess this is Shield. He contacts Gabriel was it Jones?
Yep, it is
Gabriel Jones, who I looked this up. He's one of Nick Fury's Howling Commandos.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with some of the deeper Nick Fury lore of the Marvel universe, this is sort of one of his right-hand guys there, but they're sort of discussing things, and notice that right near where this last Hulk sighting is none other than the location of Stark Enterprises, and of course where Tony Stark is, Iron Man could not be far behind. So they're immediately thinking that Tony Stark must have some reason, or at the very least that Banner is headed to see Tony Stark to try to hide out there. So that's where we move on to Bruce Banner awakening at Stark Enterprise. We see Iron Man enter and take off the helmet. So apparently, and this is another thing that's fun to drop in on, there was an Iron Man episode before this where the Hulk and Iron Man met. So this is how they I guess Bruce is in on the secret that Iron Man and Tony are one and the same here.
They don't really make mention though, like they don't mention it. Like they mention that they know each other, and Shield and General Ross, or Gabriel Jones and General Ross, make the connection that Banner knows Stark because Stark provided the materials for the gamma reactor that ended up exploding and turning him into the Hulk. I have no idea if that was established on that Iron Man episode or not, because I didn't go back and watch it. But it would be interesting to know whether or not that is. But you're also, again, you're coming into a show where there was no origin story here. Bruce Banner was already the Hulk. So if you didn't watch the Iron Man episode for this, or you thought it was weird that he sort of hid his identity from Rick, I guess they don't make it clear that he's hiding it from Rick, but I maybe, I don't know. Anyway, good. Continue.
Yes. So from there, we get a little bit of a heart-to-heart from Tony and Bruce, who Bruce is sort of lamenting how no matter how many times he's tried to cure his Hulk affliction, he hasn't been able to, and he keeps failing. And Tony tries to sort of give him a pep talk, telling him that he doesn't really even get started working on a problem until he's failed miserably a couple of times. So they're determined to sort of put their heads together and work things out. And from there, we cut to another scene in Stark Enterprises where we see Rhodey, War Machine, out of costume, and he and Rick are sort of looking at a few things, and Rick gets Chekhov's Iron Man gauntlet here in this scene. As we see him playing around with things, and in fact, actually accidentally firing off a couple of shots that make Rhodey and Homer a little bit nervous.
Hey, cool. So this new armor's repulsor ray packs more wallop than the one Iron Man used on Hulk?
So Homer boasts endlessly. Say, you and the Hulk got some kind of friendship going on, or what?
Yeah, well, it's Bruce saving my dumb rear that got him blissed with gamma rays in the first place. I owe it to him to be there. You know, through the rough times.
I know what you mean, kid. Friends do that.
Excuse me, sir.
Sorry, he spooked me. Again.
It's okay. I often wanted to do that myself.
I have an urgent call from S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent Gabriel.
Better skinny out of here, kid.
Yeah, there's some comedy that's played for there, as Rhodey mentions that as one of the shots, of course, because Homer is a hologram, it goes through him, destroying some equipment. But Rhodey remarks that he, too, wanted to do the same thing to Homer. If you've watched any of the Iron Man series, there was always a bit of an adversarial relationship between Homer and Rhodey. So very funny that they gave that callback here. But yes, we learn that they are setting up. At this point, we don't know exactly what's going on with Bruce and Tony, but that they've been discussing about they're going to work together to try and rid Bruce of the Hulk. And meanwhile, Rhodey gets a incoming call from the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Gabriel Jones, the aforementioned Gabriel Jones, and he, despite telling Rick to get out of view, Rick accidentally remains in view as this conversation between Rhodey and Jones happens, and Jones is trying to shake him down, ask him where Bruce Banner is. Rhodey denies everything, but when Jones reviews the tape, we get the old TV trope of computer, zoom in, enhance. We get a very garbled image that suddenly is in HD, and it is, of course, Rick Jones that he spots in the background, with General Ross seeing it, declaring that if Rick Jones is there, then the Incredible Hulk must be there as well. So it's time to move in on Stark, and we cut back to our heroes who are unbeknownst to this plan of action here by S.H.I.E.L.D. and the government as they begin their descent on Stark Enterprises. But we have this experiment. They're putting Bruce in a tube that's going to separate essentially the Hulk's DNA from his DNA or something like that. I don't know. There's a lot of exposition and things that are said that may or may not make scientific sense. All I know is they put the man that can be easily agitated and turn into a green monster into a very small confined space and shock him with electricity.
Rick, before my memory skips another beat, I want to say thanks, for not giving up on me even when...
Hey, wasn't too long ago when everyone had given up on me. Everyone but a certain doctor. So, enough said.
Okay, Bruce. Good news is I was able to replace several outdated components in your design, mainly the gamma filters. Bad news is that once you're put into stasis sleep, I'll have to artificially induce your Hulk state to purge the gamma mutation. Should be some ride. Yeah. Understood.
Initiating containment. Best of luck, sir.
We just gotta make it through. Old Bruce has had more than his share of bogus days. Besides, what could possibly go wrong?
So that's what we're doing. And as this starts up and as they begin their process and hoping to rid Bruce of the Hulk monster, of course, Shield and General Ross with their forces show up outside of Stark Enterprises, calling in to speak to Tony, to ask him to give up Bruce Banner. Bruce is again still in the containment field. Tony denies Bruce being there and says that he's not going down without a fight. So at this point, the experiment starts to begin to go awry as it's been interrupted a couple of different times by this conversation. And when they begin to go through with things, wouldn't you know it, the old power cutting sequence happens as the government shoots missiles. We get a brief scuffle outside as they begin sending in robots, which the more things change, the more they stay the same. Marvel, and being the people that they are, can't help themselves but repeat the past. As we get an army of robots. If it was live action, it would be CGI. A CGI army, an animated cartoon robot army headed to fight our heroes here, because if you kill all of them, there's absolutely zero repercussions. So we get this army of robots begin invading Stark Enterprises, but for the time being at least, the defense systems seem to be working, but as I mentioned, they go right after the power system, which not only disrupts the security system, but of course disrupts the power to the experiment that they're doing. And things began to fail. And in the words of Rick Jones, duck and cover, sports fans, he's hulking out.
Moving into critical gamma state. We get through this and hold on. Mutagenic. Critical gamma state. We get through this and hold on. Mutagenics remaining stable. It's not purging. It must be a flaw. No! Banner's mutated DNA is manufacturing defenses.
Duck and cover, sports fans. He's hulking out.
Because the Incredible Hulk is not too happy to be in this confined space and being electrocuted, and begins to rock back and forth. So the transformation is continued here, and he breaks out. And boy, oh boy, is he mad. We know he's always angry, right? That's his secret. But he's quite angry at this point and breaks out. And there begins a small scuffle between the Incredible Hulk, and we get our Batman v Superman moment here, right? We get our battle between our two heroes once again as the Hulk decides to take out his anger on Tony Stark first, who, thankfully for him, is launched towards his suit of armor. And it's not just any suit of armor. It is our Hulkbuster armor, Liam, which, man, oh man, just the absolute coolest Iron Man suit of all time. I mean,
absolutely. My favorite, the Iron Man and Hulk, the non-Spider-Man X-Men cartoons are largely looked at, I think, as lesser than and not as successful. And a lot of that comes down to, did their toys sell? And that's just how the industry was at the time. Generally speaking, the toys paid for the show. And but man, the Iron Man Hulkbuster action figure is that's a probably 10 favorite action figures I ever owned as a kid. all the extra armor pieces and stuff. So seeing it in action in an episode, very, very cool. And we'll certainly talk more about that in visuals. But yes, Tony runs in, gets in the suit just at the nick of time as Hulk looked like he was going to take out his frustration on Rick one more time. And of course, so we have these kind of multifaceted on. We have War Machine still trying to tangle with the various robots. We have Hulkbuster robots bursting into the lab, and then we have the Hulk and Iron Man battling as well. So Rick grabs his gauntlet, his Iron Man gauntlet that he was playing with earlier, and begins to take out some of the other robots so that Iron Man can focus on the Hulk. And they have a pretty fun, albeit brief battle. And of course, just like the anti-kryptonite suit or any of these other special suits that our heroes wear, we bring it in for an episode and it must immediately get destroyed as the Hulk gives it quite a bear hug. And so Tony is forced to abandon ship, so to speak, and just fly around in his regular armor. And at the same time, a helicopter drops sort of a special trap for the Hulk and captures him and begins to airlift the Hulk out of it. And Rick actually runs in as Iron Man and War Machine sort of continue to fight off some of the robots. Rick runs and jumps and leaps onto the trap and begins to try to damage it as the Hulk is unable to break it from inside. But Rick is able to damage it just enough that that the Hulk is able to break out. And as he does, he sort of realizes that it's Rick. He regains his memory that Rick is his friend and that Rick has helped him.
Come on, Hulk! Bash this thing! Trash it!
Blast! What's that punk kid think he's doing?
When in doubt, break something!
Friend? Hope, remember now. Friend.
He's going to be okay, big fella.
Hulk, get him out of here! Are we in this little soiree with a bang?
And the Hulk breaks out of his prison and returns to the lab. And thankfully, as Rick was falling down, Iron Man was able to catch him. So Rick is not too hurt, but he is knocked out. So Iron Man and War Machine sort of stand guard as the Hulk flees the scene, and they take out a few remaining robots before we get our little bit of an epilogue to the show here, as Ross is sort of questioning Iron Man very strictly. But as we can see, there's no evidence official other than that video call where Iron Man is like, "You'll never get Bruce Banner while I'm still standing." There's no official evidence that the Hulk or Bruce Banner were here, and in fact, Iron Man claims that if he was here, he must have been vaporized in the explosions, and there's no evidence that says otherwise. So they kind of have Ross and Jones sort of frustrated, but they have no choice but to withdraw with some parting pithy dialogue about how Iron Man's going to send a bill to the Pentagon for all of the repairs to Stark Industries. And then we sort of end with a very soft. We get our moral of the story as after everyone else is left, we see Tony and Rhodey sort of standing amongst the wreckage, and Rhodey talking about what a mess it was and how there's it's a shame that all of this came at such a high price and with no real reward. But Tony Stark's there to let us know that really helping a friend is the greatest reward of all.
Gonna need a month or two in a whirlpool after tonight.
Sir, I have calculated the damages and have deduced that helping Dr. Banner was not very cost-effective.
I'm sure it was, Homer. Because there's nothing more valuable than friendship.
We get fun final little shot of Rick and Bruce Banner stowed away on a train car, and they're hiding away off to the next town and off to the next adventure as we wrap up for this week.
There you have it. All right. So I think it's safe to say we probably talked about this last year during our Spider-Man episodes. It's hard to use the same scale. We actually talk about this across all shows. Like hard to use the same scale when you think about what the budgets were for between this and Batman the Animated Series, or even, you know, Zeta and Batman the Animated Series, or Static, or, you know. So we do take grade on a curve. We're going to grade on a curve here when it comes to things. The plot itself, this episode is near and dear to us because our grandfather just like randomly taped this, like recorded this off of live television one time, and we had it on tape and watched it 100 times. And as you mentioned, the Iron Man series was pretty near and dear to our hearts growing up. It was our kind of our only exposure to Marvel animation for quite some time. So having this Iron Man show up on this series will always be super cool. Like it's just a super cool concept. I think the plot in and of itself, the idea that Bruce is looking to get this cure, so he thinks about who his friends are, and he thinks about this brilliant scientist, this guy who's helped him out, this super rich guy that's helped him out, or that, you know, helped him out with his initial experiment. He knows his secret, being Iron Man. I'm going to go seek this guy out and see what we can do to put our heads together. Maybe he can help me. That makes a lot of sense. The idea that just by accident, if Rick hadn't been in this screenshot, the episode wouldn't have happened, essentially. Like, that's the only reason they suspected that he was there. But if Rick had just been able to get off of screen, maybe the episode wouldn't have happened. There's certainly some happenstance that occurs, but I think you can look past that. There is, I think I would have liked to have seen more of the Hulkbuster, Hulk versus Iron Man concept. If you're going to do this, if you're really going to do this, then do it. Like, have it play out more. But then again, I think it also plays out on the Iron Man episode. From my recollection, the Hulk fights him in that episode too. So maybe they didn't want to triple down on that. It tells a fine story. I mean, you don't get too much resolution. I don't believe Iron Man reappears on this series. So it's not like the quote unquote friendship that they value so much that they talk about at the end really comes back into play for the series. But I think it's a fine, fun story. It's a fun 22 minutes. It's pretty much wall-to-wall action. There's always something happening. Even the downtime parts seem to be infused with a little bit of action. So I ended up giving plot a 7 out of 10 for this. How about you?
Yeah, I went with the exact same score. I think the bones of this are fun. Like we sort of talked about at the start, it's very much takes after the old live action Hulk TV series, and that, you know, he's on the move town to town. He's a fugitive from the law, and he's kind of out there, and he's just going from town to town. This week he happens to be in Los Angeles, and that's where Iron Man lives. So, you know, you kind of accept some of that happenstance, and then you just kind of enjoy the ride. Yeah, I don't some of the things, like, you can look at, like, oh, how Ross and Joan and Gabriel Jones figure out where they are, or that Rick is just like standing in the background while Rhodey's on the video phone. Like, yeah, that's all a little bit of happenstance. That's one of those things that, like, okay, that happens because we want the third act to be Ross showing up with a bunch of robots for Iron Man and War Machine to fight. Like, right. That's one of those ones you just kind of have to accept. So it's not going to win any goals. I really appreciate, and we'll talk about this in voice acting. Like, I don't. The character of Rick Jones can be a little bit grating in that way that this character, this archetype of character, always is.
Mhm.
when you go back to a 90s cartoon, I think, or really maybe a 90s TV show of any kind. But I really think like I really appreciated like the wholesomeness of his and Bruce Banner's relationship in this episode. Like there's a lot of like them like squeezing each other's hand. Like there's like a physical affection for each other that they show.
Yeah.
That I think is really nice. And like it seems like they like you believe that part of it, even wrapped up in all of the totally rad motorcycle tricks and one-liners. I think the friendship of Rick and Bruce Banner, and by extension Rick and the Hulk, I think is well done, and I appreciated that, and to an extent the friendship between Tony and Bruce Banner as well. So I think there's still some good stuff in here, even if it's not quite as perhaps polished as a one of our regular DCAU cartoons could be at times. I think it's still quite a bit of fun, and it you always have that factor of as we've said recently on other shows, just the episodes where you get to take two of your action figures and mash them together and make them fight. Like those episodes are always fun. Those are always a hoot when you get to do one of these crossovers. So there's extra points for that too, probably.
There you go. All right, Liam, let's move on to our second category, which of course is going to be animation and visuals. And I believe you said the animation studio responsible is Cyrom Productions. So don't know a lot about this company. I will say, as far as Marvel animated shows are concerned, I think everything looks fine. There were some neat tricks that I liked. They used the sort of close-up shot of both Iron Man and War Machine a couple of times, where you got the reflection of whatever they were looking at on the other side. As a way. It happened to Iron Man at least 3 times. Like one time it's just like fire. There's a couple of times where it's the Hulk, and there's even one shot where they do a super close up. You get to see Tony Stark's eyes through the lenses, which you typically can't see. They're usually black. But there's this one really great shot where Hulk is. I think it's the cut to commercial break. The Hulk is kind of standing over top of him, about to smash him with something, and they cut away from it. So. There's some interesting things. I think the Hulkbuster robots. So I don't know if we mentioned it, but it's very confusing. But the robots that the army uses in order to attack the Hulk are also called Hulkbusters, not to be confused with the Hulkbuster Iron Man armor. But the robots, they're interesting. I like that it didn't appear to me that they just used like loop continuous animation for the Hulkbusters and the scenes that they're in. Like there's one shot where they're kind of marching past, and I will say that there are some goofs. There are some things. There's a lot of jump cuts. And I think some of that probably goes to our director, would go to our director as far as I assume for the animation choices and the cuts. But the action sequences are very jump cut heavy, which make it very, very difficult for me, or made it difficult for me to sort of take everything in, because it's there for a second and then it's gone. And maybe some of that was due to budget to make it seem more in motion than it was. I don't know. I don't know if that was a camouflage thing. I don't know if that's just a personal decision or choice by the director, our director, Ernesto Lopez, or what the deal was. But it's very dizzying. And that both the opening fight between Iron Man and the Hulk, and then that last sequence where they're fighting, the army's coming in, there's helicopters outside, War Machine's fighting the army and S.H.I.E.L.D., Iron Man's back inside the lab fighting the Hulk. There's a lot of jumping around, a lot of quick cuts, and it's very hard to appreciate the action that's going on the screen, because it's almost not there for long enough for you to absorb it. So I did not like that. There are some goofs. Couple of major ones. One I will mention is really not that big of a deal, but it's kind of funny. It's one of those like Super Friends type things with a reverse Batman symbol. When in the opening scene, when the Hulk turns back into Bruce Banner after saving the family, he looks into a puddle to see the Hollywood sign. But the Hollywood sign is, you see it from the puddle's reflection. It should be backwards, right? Because it's like a mirror at that point.
Right. But
it's simply just flipped. Like the letters themselves aren't backwards. It's just kind of spelled backwards and upside down. So it's not, it wasn't properly, it should be reversed. Like it should be flipped horizontally, and it was not flipped horizontally. So minor goof there. The major goof that I actually didn't see listed anywhere, I checked the goof section. If you want some entertainment, head over to the Marvel Animated Universe wiki page and check out the some of the goofs that are listed there. It will give the DC Animated Universe wiki trivia and goofs page a run for its money. But I didn't notice this one, but there is an actual part of that final sequence, Liam, I don't know if you picked up on it, that is cut out of order. Did you pick up on that?
Is there? I know there's a shot in that final sequence where Iron Man takes off flying in the Hulkbuster suit. Then it cuts to a shot of him out of the suit, and then he's back in the suit. I saw that portion.
Yeah,
specifically,
it doesn't. The Hulk is bear hugging him, starts to give him the bear hug, and they have not established that he leaves the suit. At least there was no like, maybe that's what he did. I never understood what happened. He's in Hulk. He's giving him the bear hug. All of a sudden he's flying around, and then we cut back and he's back in the Hulkbuster armor.
Yeah. Like in this shot, we see him there is a shot of him taking off in the Hulkbuster suit.
Okay.
Then there's the shot of him flying around in the regular Iron Man suit.
Right.
Then it cuts to the Hulk for a second, cuts back to him, Iron Man, but he's back in the Hulkbuster suit.
Right.
Then Hulk pulls him out of the sky and puts him in the bear hug.
Yes.
There's just one shot where for some reason Iron Man is not in the Hulkbuster suit.
Flying around, he's just in his regular suit. I don't know if they cut that from the end where he finally does break out of the Hulkbuster suit or what happened there, but I'm like, wait, why isn't he in the Hulk? We just saw him take off in the Hulkbuster suit. What's happened? Why is he in a normal suit here? But it certainly was a little distracting there. I think it's fine. I think there are some interesting sequences. The action is certainly there. And I think mostly everybody stays on model throughout the episode. Hey, we get lots of Tony Stark mullet in this, which is a huge W for me.
Little tiny mustache and luscious locks.
That's right. I'm still mad that they killed off the Tony Stark character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe without letting him grow a mullet. Like
Cowards. He was like hanging out in space for like 2 years between
right.
Infinity War and Endgame. He still didn't have a mullet somehow. Cowards.
What did you like about visuals?
So I was gonna say I like the overall look of the show. I think the first Iron Man to the second season of Iron Man was a big visual upgrade, and so we get the more modern version of those character models for this Hulk series as well. I think it helps that a lot of the action is set at night, because it means they have to do like shadowing and cell shading.
Yep.
So I appreciate that. Like I said, I think we've kind of covered all of the big notes. I really appreciated just it sounds funny to say, but how one-sided that first fight is, where Iron Man swoops in at the last second, saves Rick from splatting, and then just Hulk is on him and it's just wearing him out. I thought you already mentioned it, but sort of we get a few different shots of both Iron Man and War Machine where it'll be a close-up of their helmeted face, and then you see the reflection either of who's speaking to them, or you'll see like fire in it or something like that. We get a couple of cool shots of the sort of the Iron Man POV where you see his like his HUD screen and all that. I think that's pretty fun. The one I really liked the laser rope thing that he used. It's like the first weapon the Hulkbuster uses to try to contain the Hulk. shoots out like what looks like a regular laser beam, but it wraps around the Hulk and ties him up instead. I think that's kind of a wacky, fun thing. Yeah, I like the sequence of War Machine fighting with the robots and the soldiers outside. I think that's fun. Like he's very much an active part of this episode too, which is cool because another one of those just really really neat characters where you wouldn't barely know anything about about these characters. You're like, this guy's cool looking though, and he has like the rocket pack on the back, so his weapons aren't one to one. It's not like you just palette swapped the Iron Man suit. Like it's quite a bit of a different look, and his weapons are different as well. So I appreciated that. Other than the visual things that you already mentioned that we didn't like, things were like the always aligned with where they're supposed to be coming out of, either of the like the chest portal or the hands or whatever. And this is more of a personal taste thing, but back to things I like. All of the modern Iron Man stuff since the first Robert Downey Jr. movie, he has those little like rockets on his hand when he's flying. So he's always like hands out to the side, like floating. And I just don't think that looks very cool.
Agreed.
So I like that Iron Man and War Machine are just kind of like traditionally flying. And if you're asking, well, how is he steering? I would say that it's fake. That's how.
He's fighting a giant gamma radiation monster. That's how.
Right.
And that's what you're worried about?
Yeah, I don't know. That's just maybe I have to do stuff because especially in the early days of maybe general audiences weren't quite as accepting of all of this comic book silliness as longtime nerds like us are. But yeah, I like that they're just kind of floating around out there. I think that's. But yeah, I definitely think those are the hallmarks. I like the weird Homer character who just pops out of nowhere. I think that's a lot of fun as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot to enjoy.
Yeah. There one last thing, the brief detail in that fight that I really really enjoyed, and I don't know why, but ever since I saw this episode for the first time, it pops up. But in the first fight sequence, the Hulk literally smashes a car on top of Iron Man, and he ends up in the front seat. And they give you this POV from the back seat over Iron Man's shoulder, looking at the Hulk screaming through the windshield. And you look up, and the rear view mirror has Iron Man's face in it, and it turns when his head turns. So you can see Iron Man's face in the rear view mirror from the back seat POV, which is just a nice little like cool detail that they included. So there is the bones of some really good attention to detail in some of the scenes here, but some of the places they kind of fell short. And there was I also don't like. I know the purpose of it was to establish that the power was out or whatever. They were on a backup generator for the final sequence there, but that red film that they placed over the entire last scene, which turns like the Hulk this disgusting brown color, and it's I hate that. I've hated that since I saw this episode for the first time. It just makes everything look dirty and grimy. It doesn't really establish, like, again, they're going for like powers out. This is emergency power lighting. Like if you lost power in a building and these are your emergency lights or whatever. But I did not like that as far as the aesthetic is concerned for that final sequence.
Fair enough. Yeah, I like I said, I think there's some fun here. The animation itself, I think, is a little bit stiff, and I was kind of looking up this Cyrom Productions, and they don't have a lot of like action show credit. Like it's a very like well-versed company. They've been working for, they still work on like present day stuff for Cartoon Network and stuff. But you look at their bona fides, so to speak, here, and it's a lot of like comedy shows and like Nickelodeon cartoons and things like that. Not a lot of like heavy action stuff. So I don't know that they were like maybe the only other like action thing is they were on the one of the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons in the early 90s. So yeah, not a lot of action to them. So I think that might have also played into it, and that might also explain some of the, as you said, the sharp cuts, as we've talked about. Sometimes those cuts are like a deliberate choice by the director and storyboard artists, and sometimes those cuts are that that shot is unusable, so we
Mhm.
have to just clip it out of the episode. So it could be a little bit of both in that case. So for all those reasons, like I said, I still think there's some fun to be had visually here. I ended up settling on a 6 out of 10 for my visual score.
Yeah, and I went just 1 point lower. I went with a 5 out of 10 for my score. Again, we're grading on a curve here. There is some interesting stuff to enjoy. I just kind of wish that some of the jump cuts weren't weren't as jumpy. So
That's fair. Yeah, I think the softer moments, like I said, the stuff with him and Rick, the opening sequence where he saves the family in the rain, and they like put the coat over his head, and like the baby reaches out and touches his face and all that, and he gets this like goofy smile on his face. Like there's some nice little sort of smaller moments they do well, even among the worst action stuff.
there's a cool 180 pan that they do initially too. It's the first shot that you get of the Hulk sitting in the rain, like Sad Boy Hulk. There's like this pretty, they start out at the front and then they kind of pan to the side of him looking out over his shoulder. So I thought that shot was actually pretty neat too. All right, Liam, let's move on to our next category, which is going to be music. And we have a couple of artists, as you mentioned. I will not put you through the pain of re-establishing our musicians. And by pain, I mean I don't want you to have to struggle through pronouncing their names or butchering their names and being disrespectful to them.
I don't want to disrespect them any more than I already have.
That's right.
In the opening credits there, but.
So yeah, with Marvel animated content comes the unfortunate trope, which is there are few and far between moments that they allowed to breathe. It is almost from start to finish music that occurs from the get-go. Before we get into our actual episodes music, I would like to briefly talk about. We also could have probably talked about the opening sequence too, the official Incredible Hulk theme song, which follows suit with every other Marvel animated universe show, or at least a couple of them. So Iron Man's theme song, at least for the second season, was "I Am Iron Man." I am Iron Man. I am Iron Man. Over and over and over again. Spider-Man's theme song was Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Radioactive, Spider-Man, 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 Radioactive, Spider-Man, Spider-Blood, etc.
Etc. and so forth.
Etc. and so on and so forth. The Fantastic Four did have a pretty catchy theme song for their first season. But then ditched that in favor of, I think, just a instrumental number for the second season. But the Hulk continues that tradition of just kind of repeating the hero's name over and over and over again as we get just the theme song kick in, and we get this pretty interesting. It's all original animation, so no clips being used. Kudos to them for that, not going the lazy route and just clipping clips from different parts of the show. It's all animation that kind of tells you a little bit about what we're going to be seeing for the show. But in the background, as we get this theme song that comes over, we just get this guy saying, "Hulk, Incredible Hulk," like this chanting of Hulk, Incredible Hulk, several times throughout, which I'm not going to front here. It gets me going. Like, you could probably play this over some loudspeakers and I would want to run through a brick wall. It's pretty motivating.
I was gonna say, this is definitely going on the workout playlist. You got a good steady, it sounds like marching. There's a very steady drum line to it, and then you have this, you have the horns coming in, sort of slowly building up to that crescendo, and then you have this chanting of Incredible Hulk over and over again. I can't. What else do you need? It's a great piece, and then you get the softer string part when it's Hulk being sad about Betty in the middle there, and then it cuts back, and then we get back to the cool stuff, and all the villains show up that the Hulk will fight over the course of the series, and we get that stronger theme brought back in, and the chanting resumes. So it's a fun. I have found myself humming this pretty much since we knew for sure we were going to be and I went looking for clips to use for social medias and stuff. I've been been humming the Hulk theme to myself, and that's not the only superhero theme we get to hear throughout the course of our episode this week.
That is right. The aforementioned Iron Man theme punctuates several of the scenes, almost to the point where it's like, man, we get it. It's Iron Man. He is Iron Man. But again, we have soft spot for that Iron Man theme, and they just use the riff, the like every time he swoops in to save Rick, the multiple times he does that. There's even like a soft version that's played when he comes in to visit Bruce after he's rescued him and brought him back to Stark Enterprises.
It's me, Tony Stark. Memory back, old friend?
I'm fading in and out. Tony, what happened?
Rick and I got into a little fracas with a very confused, green-eyed monster. We're not talking jealousy.
Rick, where did it... Sorry, this headache... Is Rick okay?
He's doing fine. He's doing fine. He's a sharp kid. One dedicated friend.
Yeah, better than I deserve. My life's a nightmare for anyone it touches, Tone. What'll I do? Every cure to rid myself of the Hulk has failed miserably.
Hey, it's not until I fail miserably that I really start to get serious. What say we put our eggheads together and take another crack at that cure, huh?
So yeah, it's almost overplayed, I would say, especially since this is a Hulk animated series. It would be the equivalent of like Superman guest starring in the Batman episode, and they're just playing the initial riff on repeat over and over again, because it is just the one riff. But you got to appreciate it for bringing back the continuity, and that's his theme song. Again, I don't know that everybody loves the X-Men animated series theme song, and rightfully so. It's a great piece of music. Agreed. But that Iron Man season 2 theme song, 100% underrated.
Absolutely. Yes, that's the S tier Marvel theme. As we talked about, we have a place in our heart for a lot of these Marvel animated themes, but the Iron Man season 2 theme is the king in my heart. So yeah, it is fun to hear it brought in. I think especially that first time when we kind of build up to it, but then as Rick's about to go splat against the support beam, and Iron Man swoops into the screen like from underneath and flies up into the scene to catch him, and that theme plays for the first time. I think it's awesome. And as you said, it does go on to be a bit overused throughout the rest of the episode, but the soundtrack, as far as that, and we also have the Hulk theme used quite a bit, especially during the action bits, and anytime Hulk's sad, you get that sort of bridge brought in. But the rest of the music, I would describe, this is probably not the right word, but I would describe as oppressive. It is a nonstop barrage of just sounds and strings, and there is no letting this breathe. And again, I don't think any of it's bad, but it does come to a point where it almost becomes sort of white in the background, at least of your non-action sequences. I think the music during the fight, when it's War Machine and like the Stark security turrets against the Hulkbusters, I think I like the music in that sequence, because again, I think the percussion there sort of replicating the marching of the soldiers and the robots is good. And then there's the sort of a moment where all of the turrets sort of activate and turn and sort of face whatever they're targeting, and that's kind of synced up to the music at the same time. So they do stuff with it. I didn't dislike it. Is, like I said, other than those character themes and maybe some of those other action beats, it does start to blend in when it's just constantly going, no matter what's happening in the scene.
Yeah, it's unfortunately something that plagued all of these Marvel cartoons, as we've talked about, and it's just because it's not high quality music either. I don't think if it is live orchestra, it wasn't recorded as well as the DC shows. It's probably a lower budget smaller orchestra, worse recording equipment or something, because it definitely does, it comes off as just low budget and makes the entire show feel more low budget than it probably deserved to be. So yeah, despite the wall-to-wall music, there were a couple, as you mentioned, I liked the dichotomy that they had between the music in the scene where they're trying to de-Hulk Bruce Banner, and then outside this battle is occurring. They kind of cut back and forth, and it's like softer, and then they cut back outside, and it's more ominous and more, as the forces continue to encroach, it begins to get more hectic and more frantic, and then inside things start to build up as the Hulk, the bass and the drums begin to kick up a little bit. So I think if there was more opportunity to let the pieces in these bigger scenes breathe, as we've said a couple times, I think would have made them stand out even more. It's like, man, this is really, really good. But because it is just nonstop music from the start to the end, it bleeds into it, and you're just like, man, I wish I could hear these people speaking more. I
was gonna say, we'll get this in a second. Iron Man's voice actor is a very soft-spoken man. There's points where the sound, and that might be more on the mixing than on the music. I mean, I wouldn't put that on the music itself, but that might be more in the sound mixing of things. But yeah, you can almost barely, when he's talking to Homer in that first scene, you can barely hear what he's saying.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Even with all of that, though, even with all the critiquing, I will say, between the Iron Man theme and then they actually bring in the Hulk theme later on, as he and Rick escape out of the lab right before the forces enter, or as the forces have already entered, and as Iron Man and Rhodey continue to fight the army of robots. I ended up giving music a strong 7 out of 10, even with all of the critiquing that I gave. I still think that the Hulk opening sequence theme is great. I love the bringing back of the theme throughout, and then of course the nods to the Iron Man theme throughout the episode were just the cherry on top. So 7 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, and I actually, believe it or not, went even 1 point higher. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I like I said, I think this could be even higher with what we've talked about. If some of those other moments were perhaps music free, or at least less less oppressive in their music. I really like, there's a little like sting. It's like do 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 whenever the Hulk is like, whenever Bruce is transforming into the Hulk or about to. I like it, one, because it kind of reminds me of the Legend of Zelda sound like when he picks up a thing.
I love that.
Like but also because I like I said, I think there are a lot of cool moments when they're like transitioning into the action, where the music kind of works with the rhythm of what's happening on screen. And I do appreciate that. And I appreciate what they did. Like I said, I think there's other scenes where it feels more meandering that maybe bring this down a point or even two beyond what it could have been for. But overall, I enjoy the music, and hey, those when you get two great superhero themes in one episode, it's hard to go too low on your music score.
Incredible Hulk. All right, Leah, let's take us home here with our final category of the day, and that, of course, is going to be our voice actors. There's actually some DCAU crossover with a couple of our voices here, as we'll begin to talk about, and we can also mention there's even more DCAU crossover that's not included in this throughout the series, as there were in several of the other Marvel animated shows as well. But we have a cast here of some notable names and some recognizable names from 90s fame, and perhaps they're most notably from their prior roles as the Incredible Hulk before this cartoon series. Let's talk about this week's voice cast.
Absolutely. So just some of the side actors. We have Tom Barry as Gabriel Jones. We have Tom Kane as Homer, who folks would probably know best as he's the announcer at the start of every episode of Star Wars Clone Wars.
Aha!
Okay. So that's a very, very recognizable voice if you've watched even 1 or 2 episodes of that show. But voicing a War Machine, we have Dorian Harewood, who we've talked about a few times, I think, in various things. He's in the Batman the Animated Series episode The Forgotten as Riley in that episode, and does quite a few smaller roles over the years in a lot of the various DCAU shows. But he's also, as a little trivia tidbit, because who knows, God knows if we'll come back to another Marvel show next year before I could talk about this again. But he was actually the second War Machine voice actor, as the original voice actor in season 1 of Iron Man is none other than Uncle James Avery is the voice of War Machine in that first season. But Mr. Harewood picked it up in the second season and then gets to come over and reprise that role here in which is funny because then Uncle Phil comes back to voice War Machine and Spider-Man. So
I think it seems like it's a tradition though that if you are cast as War Machine for one Iron Man property, you are doomed to be recast for the follow-up, as we know that occurred in the live action series as well.
Seems there's a War Machine curse out there that we all need to be worried about. But yes, there we elsewhere in the cast we have this is very niche, but I have to mention Shadow Stevens, Samson, green-haired muscle man, who's also a doctor. Someone who knows about Hulk stuff, explain who Doc Samson is to me, please. I know nothing about this character.
We know from the exposition of this episode that he's got gamma infused muscles, and I'm looking at this through the incorrect lens, but does it not seem that he's sort of setting himself up to be the other man?
Feels that way.
Like Betty is very flirtatious in this episode. He uses his gamma infused muscles to protect her. I mean, seems very much like this is just being set up for a romance angle here.
Definitely. But Shadow Stevens, who voiceover guy, veteran, but I know him best as the man who for X amount of years on the Late Late Show with Craig Ferguson at the start of every show said, "Ladies and gentlemen, Craig Ferguson." So that's the most niche thing I've ever said on this show. And think of the.
I will say, I think he did a far better job with the Late Show than he did in. I mean, we're taking this with a grain of salt because it is a very, very quick scene, but I was not impressed with his take as this hulking heroic man. At least the lines that he delivered, not very good in this scene in this particular episode. So
yeah, hard to disagree there. And playing off of him, as mentioned, we have Jeannie Francis of General Hospital fame as Betty briefly. Not a lot to write home about there, but then we get to some of our main actors. Another DCAU veteran, John Vernon as Thunderbolt Ross here. Of course, the voice of Rupert Thorne in Batman the Animated Series. Very, very recognizable voice, but he's a great Ross. Like, it's weird because when you know him so well, as like when he has such a recognizable voice, it's weird to kind of get that's Rupert Thorne, but like in a bubble, great choice for General Ross for this hard nose. He's not quite a villain because he's not like the Hulk is dangerous, but he's so sort of single-minded and pig-headed in his determination to capture this guy that he kind of becomes the antagonist. And he has that sort of there's a military like respect and gravitas to everything he says, but he's still sinister enough to be the bad guy.
He's right there. Left a trail of chaos and destruction a mile wide. Pretend to be useful, super spy, and sniff out any ties Banner has with Southern Cal.
Answer's right in front of your battle-hungry little eyes, General. Stark Enterprises?
Tony Stark? Well, he's just one of our government contractors, a businessman.
But also the man who supplied Bruce Banner with the materials to build his infamous gamma reactor?
Well then, let's place us a little person-to-person call.
Yeah, he's really good. It's just, I mean, he just has that big, booming, over-the-top voice, and he commands the room when he talks, whether or not he's portraying this gangster from Gotham or this military general. You have to have somebody that has a just has a larger than life sound to him, and I think he does a really strong job of being able to do that in in this episode, and I'm sure the rest of the series as well. It didn't even dawn on me until probably his second scene. I was like, hold on a second here. That's Rupert Thorne's voice. But as we talked about, the Marvel animated universe was no stranger to using, many of the same voice actors in its animation. We know Ephraim Zemplis Jr. took a role as Dr. Octopus, and
as he's Justin Hammer in Iron Man too.
There you go. And then, Mark Hamill, of course, famously played the Hobgoblin. He also plays the Gargoyle, I believe, in this series.
Mm-hmm.
And even Richard Mall, who played Two-Face, has a turn as one of the villains in this Hulk series too. So definitely some crossover from the DCAU over to this Marvel cinema or animated universe here, as they liked what they heard. I guess it makes sense. If you're gonna cast people in roles to play in animation, why not go for the best?
Absolutely, yeah. I think there's I was gonna say, in maybe some of the other cases, this was Fox Kids synergy, but obviously not necessarily in this case. But yeah, a lot of talented folks, including, as we'll get to more of our main cast here. We have voicing the ever radical Rick Jones is maybe the most 90s voice actor you could have picked. And is, of course, one of the stars of Beverly Hills 90210, the unfortunately deceased late great Luke Perry as the voice of Rick Care. And look, as we said, this character in these 90s cartoons is always going to be a little bit grating and annoying when you come back to it. I don't think there's any two ways around it. But he's doing his job. He's doing quips. He's being cool. We didn't talk about this in visuals, but he's kind of dressed like Marty McFly, and he's he's just being like this cool rad kid and being the wisecracking sidekick, and he's doing his job, even if it's a little bit it's a little bit grating.
Yeah,
coming back to it.
No, you're absolutely right. Yes, looking back at it now, it's like, ugh, that character is just yuck. But I think as a kid, I thought Rick was pretty cool. He has long hair. He's wearing like hoodie and baggy jeans. He's riding a motorcycle. He's got a cool motorcycle helmet that he wears. He gets to wear Iron Man's gauntlet at this. He's the friend. He is the sidekick character. You talk about it all the time when you think about, with Tim Drake being such an important part of your childhood and why he remains one of your favorite heroes, if not your favorite hero, because you could look at the Tim Drake Robin and identify with him. You're like, I am Tim Drake. He's my age. I can be him. I can identify with him. I want to be him. Right. So it's the same thing with the Rick Jones character. It's like, this is a younger guy. I'm not a giant green monster, so I can't see myself as the giant green monster, but I could be the friend of the giant green monster. I could be the funny guy that gets to say all the quips and hang out with him and try and make him remember who he is all the time, and also get to hang out with his cool superhero buddies. Like, that could be me. And Luke Perry I thought he did a great job, honestly. Like, the dialogue that he was written wasn't great. But I think he took chicken crap and made chicken salad out of it. Like, there's a lot of fun. I love when he the quip with where War Machine saves him and asks him if he needs a hand, and he says, "Hate myself for saying it, but no thanks, already got one." And he takes out the gauntlet and starts using it. Classic. That and the Hulk, sports fans he's hulking out line both popped me. Those were really good. So yeah, I think he does an excellent job for exactly what was asked of him.
So yeah, as mentioned, the voice of Bruce Banner here, we have Neil McDonough, who I know best, of course, from the show Boomtown, which aired for one season in 2002.
Boomtown. I thought that was a couple of seasons. Oh, wait, isn't that the one? I thought it got a second life. That's not the one that got second life on TNT.
I don't know if it did or not. I'm seeing the premiere September 2002. Oh no, it must have aired two seasons, because the finale was December 2003. So
is that the one with the guy from the OC and Gotham?
Let's see who's in it. We got Donnie Wahlberg, America's Sweetheart.
Definitely not.
And Neil McDonough in the starring roles. And I mean, who knows? There might have been somebody from.
No, what is the show? Now I'm going to go down a rabbit hole here. The one.
What are you talking about? Ben McKenzie? Are you talking about the main guy?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't see him listed in the Boomtown cast.
What was the TV show? What was the cop show with him on it?
Gotham?
Well, yes, but not that. Southland. Okay, it's another one. All right. It was close enough. All right, back to the show.
Sorry.
Derailed.
You resume your regularly scheduled thing. I just remember an ad for Boomtown where it's like a big action thing and this city is tough and whatever, and then it just cuts to Neil McDonough going, Boomtown. So that's the things that I will remember for the rest of my life, long after I have forgotten like birthdays and things. Neil McDonough whispering Boomtown for a show that lasted maybe 2 years. But anywho, no, more famously, of course, folks listening to this would know Neil McDonough as Jamie in Dark on Arrow and the Arrow assorted spin-off shows, and as Dum Dum Dugan in the Captain America movies as well. A lot of double D names. What's going on with that? But most famously to our childhood, he's one of the pitchers in Angels in the Outfield. So I like it. We don't get a lot of Mr. McDonough as Bruce Banner in this episode. It's a lot of him just like grunting and grimacing his way through dialogue. But like I said, I like him playing off of Luke Perry as Rick, and him playing off of Robert Hayes as Iron Man as well, who we'll talk about more in a second. He doesn't get to do a lot, but he's sort of just this constantly like afraid and agitated man in this episode.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, the most dynamic thing that we get him doing is like when he has the first transfer. Well, when he falls off of the overpass, and he's leaving the message to Tony Stark. So we get a little bit of that happens there, and then we get him having a headache as he's trying to talk with Tony heart to heart. But yeah, we don't really get much. We don't really get much to hear from him in this particular episode. I'm sure he's fine. I think he was recast. I believe I saw Ron Perlman originally voiced him in the Iron Man crossover voice. I don't know if that was the Hulk or if that was Bruce Banner or both. But,
so I believe Ron Perlman also voices Hulk and Bruce Banner in the Fantastic Four cartoons. So
okay.
Like guest stars were Ron Perlman, but maybe it's a scheduling thing, or maybe it's just they weren't able to secure him full time. But yes, we have Neil McDonough as the voice of Bruce Banner for
does a fine job.
Actual. Yeah, like I said, it's limited there. But he gets there. And then, yes, our two main actors, I would say, we have Robert Hayes returning from his animated series as Iron Man. Talked about a couple of times, including as the voice of Luminous in Superman, the animated series. I love it. He's very soft-spoken. Like I think it's he's one of these, Iron Man is one of those characters that he's been so molded by who played him in the live-action movies that anyone else wouldn't take on the character. A little bit jarring as first, but I think you settle in pretty quickly to like he's very soft spoken. He's got his quips, like it's still kind of the elements you would expect from an Iron Man. He's got his one liners, and he's kind of this ultimate action hero, like with his mullet and his cool mustache and his gadgets and everything. But I like him. Like I said, I like some of the softer moments with Mr. Hayes as Tony Stark as well, and his interplay with Dorian Harewood as War Machine and Tom Kane as Homer is a lot of fun too, I think. So yeah, it's fun to have him return from his own series.
Hashtag my Iron Man. Like, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Everybody loves Robert Downey Jr., But at some point, in my opinion, Robert Downey Jr. became a caricature of himself, and he just plays himself as Iron Man. It's just Robert Downey Jr. It's not Tony Stark. So I will always have a soft spot for this version of Iron Man because of the aforementioned Iron Man show that we grew up with, and the fact that they brought him back for this, and he does end up coming back and playing Iron Man in the Secret Wars crossover Spider-Man event also. So I think that he does a great job. I enjoy his take on Iron Man. That line, the line when he first comes in, next time you think about throwing a punch, try throwing it at Iron Man is a quote that I think is one of those things that will stick with me well into my days as a prospective octogenarian. I just think that that's likely going to stick with me for quite a long time. It's just a great delivery, a great line, and I will always have a soft spot for his take on Tony Stark.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think he's very strong in this episode. And then, yes, our main actor, our man of the hour, as you mentioned, Cal, Lou Ferrigno, reprising his role as the Incredible Hulk in this episode. And his dialogue is similar in a lot of scenes. It's a lot of Hulk smash and Hulk bash enemy, and like a lot of short fragmented sentences. But there's a real intensity to him that I think is really strong. And this is another thing. I don't want this to turn into me and you just saying things we don't like about the MCU. But it's our show. So tough luck. I think Smart Hulk is lame. I don't like Smart Hulk at all. I think that's boring. And I think it takes out the most interesting part of the character, which is like the whole Jekyll and Hyde thing. Again, perhaps someone could tweet us at DCAU Review or comment on our Instagram if there's a specific Smart Hulk comic book run I should check out. As a whole, I think the Savage Hulk matched with the more mild-mannered, cerebral Bruce Banner is kind of my that's what I think of when I think of the Hulk. So and a lot of that is based on this show and his appearances in some of the other Marvel animated stuff. So I think even though he's a lot of just roaring and screaming and reductive, very, very simple sentences and everything, and I think he's fantastic. Unsurprisingly, after doing the role for like 30 some years, Lou Ferrigno, good as the Hulk. But I think also getting to do it without the benefit of the physicality of Lou Ferrigno being like this giant bear of a man, like having to do it only with his voice. It's as we've talked about, voice acting and on camera acting are not one and the same. So the fact that he was able to kind of rise to the occasion as a voice actor as well is quite impressive, I think.
No, I wholeheartly agree. I think it's a good take on the character. I can't tell. I was sitting here thinking as we were describing his performance, I don't know if they put it like a modulator on his voice in some way, if they put an effect on it at all, or if that's his raw voice, or maybe they just layer it a little bit. Because regardless, that's the Hulk voice. Like, to me, that is the Hulk voice. And if I were to read a comic book with the Hulk in it, that would be the voice that I hear, provided that it's the Hulk smash version and not the Smart Hulk version. With you on the Savage Hulk also, much more entertaining and interesting, the idea of this beast of a man that can't be tamed or controlled, and that it's this constant balance between that and the scientist that's attempting to tame the beast inside, so to speak. So yeah, I think Mr. Ferrigno does a strong performance in this episode. There's various emotions. I love when he's sort of coming back down to earth, and both of the times that he does it, where he recognizes Rick the first time, and kind of has to come down out of his rage against Iron Man, and then when he's trapped in this Hulk trap at the end, and remembers that once again that Rick is his friend and has to break out of it. And a lot of it is roaring and Hulk smash, and isn't necessarily going to win any awards for dialogue, but I think that's what you need in a Hulk performance. And again, is probably hashtag my Hulk also.
Absolutely, yeah. He's fantastic. They even, I think, brought him back to voice the CGI Hulks in the at least in the Eric Bana Hulk movie. So I know he's and I think in some of the more modern movies they sort of combined his voice with the Bruce Banner actors. So but yeah, so it's fun. I mean, he for multiple generations between all of his various turns as the character, he gets to be the Hulk for a lot of people, which is very cool. So with all of that said, I guess we can get to our scores here and tallying everything out. Like I said, I really enjoy the show. A lot of the dialogue can be clunky in parts, but I still had a lot of fun with it. I ended up giving voice acting another very strong 8 out of 10.
Yep, identical score for me, 8 out of 10 as well. We were kind of along the same thought line here for a lot
Simpatico.
Yeah, imagine that. Even when we venture into another part of the multiverse, things still stay the same here on the show. So, Liam, I guess that will bring us to our final scores for this week. So, tallying everything up, I end up with a 27 out of 40. What about you?
Yeah, and I'm just a couple points higher at 29 out of 40.
Yeah, those scores are actually significantly higher than our Spider-Man scores from last year. Our Spider-Man scores were 22 out of 40 and 23 out of 40 respectively. So we like this one quite a bit more if you're looking at things here. So again, hard to talk about these things when we review one episode out of many episodes. This show did get 2 seasons. Everything that I read, I don't think I've seen a single episode of the second season, but everything that I've read has said that they very much changed the tone for the second season, which led to a lot of people not really liking or enjoying the second season nearly as much as the first season. So, which led to it not only having a shorter run, but also being canceled pretty quickly. But so as far as the grand scheme of things here, rewatchability, we've rewatched this episode exclusively from that original Hulk run for the last 20-30 years here as we're coming up on the anniversary of this episode, originally debuting in 1996 here. So we're a couple years shy of the 30-year anniversary of this show at debuting, but I'd say it's worth a rewatch just because we've rewatched it so many times. I don't think we could say it's not worth a rewatch, but I think the elements of having the returning characters, if you love the crossover that happens between these shows, the loose sort of common voice actors and whether or not things are in the same continuity or not, the original sort of Marvel universe, if you will. I think if you enjoy all of that, this Hulk show seems to be the thing for you, at least the first season, because there's a lot of crossover between characters and voice actors and that appeared on the other shows. So I'd say, yeah, this is worth a rewatch. What say you, Liam?
Yeah, totally agree. And to your point, like this sort of loosely shared Marvel animated universe predates the DCAU becoming the DCAU.
Right.
Superman would have been getting on the air around this time, but it wasn't until pretty deep into the second half of the second season that World's Finest came up and we officially crossed things over. So yeah, credit a feather in Marvel's cap that they were doing the animated crossover before that was sort of a regular expected thing among these comic book based cartoons. So yeah, I think it's a lot of, like we said, an episode that's very special, near and dear to us personally. But I also just think it's fun. It's it's an episode where Hulk and Iron Man meet up and they fight. What more do you need if you're looking for a fun bit? If you want to just kind of like we've done the last couple of years, just to go do a little sample size of these Marvel cartoons and see how they measure up to your perhaps the nostalgia you have for them. This was one I would put on the short list for that type of viewing for sure.
Absolutely. All right, Liam. Well, let's wrap things up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for this week's special April Fool's, second annual April Fool's episode. Let us know your thoughts. Have you watched the Incredible Hulk series? I know a lot of our followers are big fans of the X-Men animated series and certainly the Spider-Man, the animated series. Did you watch these other series? Did you watch the Incredible Hulk? Did you watch Iron Man and the Fantastic Four? Were you a completist when it came to the Marvel animated universe? Tweet us or comment on our Instagram at DCAU Review, at least while Twitter still exists. We keep thinking that it's going to end. Maybe one day it will, but hey, if it's still standing while you're listening, if it's still standing, if it still exists when you're listening to this, even if it's 50 years in the future, 50 years from now, whenever now is, tweet us at DCAU Review and give us your thoughts about what you think about this week's review, the Incredible Hulk animated series, the Marvel animated universe, all of that. Feel free to tweet us or comment on our Instagram posts. Don't forget also, if you would like to support the podcast, there's a couple of different ways that we would encourage you to do so. The first and easiest is to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you hear your podcasts. If you can subscribe to us and give us a 5-star review, if the app allows you to do so, that helps us out a lot. That is one huge way to support us. If it allows you to leave a little blurb or paragraph about what you like about the podcast, drop one of those in there, even if it's just like 2 sentences, like good show, like it, whatever. Anything is great for us. So that helps us in the algorithms, gets more people listening to the podcast, which helps us out a lot. You can also support us monetarily if you're feeling so inclined by checking out the show notes. There's a link directly to our store where you can pick up a piece of merchandise to support the podcast. There's also a link to donate to the podcast directly to buy myself or Liam a coffee. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in this week. It's been a wild ride, but we will be returning back home safe and sound to our normally scheduled DCAU programming next week as we return. Liam, we are back to the sunny skies of Dakota as we round out the month of April with some more Static Shock episodes. Static has been kind of back in the limelight recently. We recently got the Static comic, the Static Beyond comic that came out recently. He's been kind of back in the forefront here. We're constantly hearing things about maybe that Static movie some point in the future. We don't know if it's going to happen now or not, but hopefully so. But it's always fun when we return back to those sunny skies, and next week will be no exception.
That's right, and we'll be picking things up with a season 2 episode of Static Shock, that being the episode Sunspots, which features a returning villain in Hot Streak and also one of the classic superhero archetypes of some vague science BS means they lose their powers for a while. So always a fun trope. So I'm excited to see how Static himself deals with those issues.
Should be a lot of fun. Can't wait. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Face front, true believers.